As the walls of religion slowly comes down, there's a rapid expansion of consciousness on a collective level, and more people are embracing universal sense of spirituality. And along with that, terms like Ascension and fifth dimensional consciousness, or 5D, is becoming more common. But what does it really mean? Hi everybody, this is Shiro from Guided Soul-ution, and today I'm going to talk about Ascension and fifth dimensional consciousness. So as spiritual awakening occurs on a much wider scale, more and more people are becoming aware that we are a multi-dimensional being, and that journey of life is about the shifting of consciousness from one dimension to another. And before I move on to define each dimension, I'd like to remind you to have your own sense of interpretation and clarification so that you'll have full ownership of how you perceive and understand your reality. Now, when we are born into 3D reality where the primary focus is on the physical and material, and our educational system stimulates only the 5 senses. We're taught to obey our parents, to obey leadership, authority, and government, to attain success through monetary status or social status, to have stability, to have security, and so forth. And our primary navigational system in the 3D reality is what we call the ego. And the ego is a reactive mechanism. It's an accumulated operational system of data based on external stimulation of experience and input, such as teaching, education, and so forth. And from that, we make decisions of what is right or wrong, what is good or bad, success or failure. And trauma is also included in how the ego system is shaped. Once we become aware that we are a spiritual being having a physical experience, we shift into the 4th dimensional consciousness. Now, our egocentric mind is still there, but now we have this spiritual consciousness that has this awareness that there's more to it than what the world presents itself to be. There's more to it than us. There's a higher being, that we are a spiritual being, and so forth. And for me, the spiritual awakening, or the shift into the 4th dimension, was becoming a born-again Christian. Now, we from there move into a 5th dimensional consciousness. And the 5th dimensional consciousness, in a nutshell, is an embodiment, a state of being, of spiritual consciousness completely being embodied. And even though our egocentric mind is still present, the awareness of identity, our individuality, a sense of self, and along with that, the desire to still savor and experience human experience, that it is much more integrated with the spiritual consciousness embodiment, and therefore creating a unified field of consciousness. Now, having said that, today I'm going to address top 5 topics of misunderstood points about the 5th dimensional consciousness. Number one is spiritual doings. The more spirituality is embraced on a universal level, activities like yoga, meditation, eating organic or vegetarian or vegan, or becoming environmentally conscious, and other activities, even including activation of our intuitive gifts, spiritual gifts to serve humanity, becomes more widely accepted. But it is very important to remember that our activities, our abilities, or the aesthetic of our presentation, meaning our appearance, have nothing to do with the quality of our ascension or state of being. Like when I was in the church, there were people who believed that they were closer to God because they prayed more, or because they read the Bible more, or because they fasted. And even watching and being aware that no matter how many souls the pastor may have led people to fourth dimensional consciousness, being born again or being saved, that it doesn't reflect the quality of their state of being. And even for me, what I do in my intuitive reading and counseling and leading people to healing through mediating spirits from the other side or guiding and counseling people, that it doesn't at all gauge my quality of state of being or ascension thereof. The Bible says that you can give your body over to be burned, to have your possessions given over to the poor, to have faith that moves mountains, to speak the language of the angels, but have not love, you are nothing. Number two. Number two is law of attraction and manifestation. Now, this is a very, very good thing that happened in the world, like the documentary, like The Secret coming out, or the Abraham Hicks and so forth. For me, as a Christian, growing up to believe that there is only one way to God, one true religion, to realize from living based on the approval of God or the will of God to understanding that my state of being, my vibe was attracting the experience that I was having, that I am the creator of my reality, that I can manifest what I put my mind to, was a huge release of my obedience to the bondage of dogma. And it helped me to expand my sense of spirituality into a much open and much more universal state. However, it is very important to remember that law of attraction is not the only law at work, and that each individual is living in cooperation with their higher self and with an organic interaction with their spirit guides, and also having individual unique purpose that is scripted prior to their incarnation. And even manifestation, especially those who are focused a lot on manifestation, don't seem to realize that they're still driven a lot by their egocentric mind. That manifestation in and of itself is a very neutral tool at our disposal, and that it responds unconditionally to both intentions of good and bad. We know that Hitler had a great vision, and with that, a law of attraction was active and attracted all of these followers, and he executed and manifested a most detrimental crime of humanity. So to remember that how much or how well you manifest has nothing to do with the reflection of your state of being, except what is infused with your intention. Number three. Number three is judgment and discernment, or judgment versus discernment. I remember even in the Bible, there was a teaching, do not judge lest you'll be judged. That to remove the log from your eye first to try to remove the dust in someone else's eye. Judgment is an energy that limits, it divides, it concludes, and it is directly contrary to the nature of the universe itself. Because the nature of the universe, to constitute infinity, it has to remain in the state of non-judgment, unconditional love. And to be in a state of judgment creates division, and it concludes something as that and nothing more. Discernment, on the other hand, contributes to expansion. It provides guidance. It provides clarity. And the main difference between the two is that judgment derives from a state of attachment, and discernment occurs from a state of detachment. Attachment is a state of connection with conditional love, and detachment is a state of unconditional love. And when you detach from something, judgment lifts, and state of discernment, or this skill, or the ability to discern, kicks in. Number 4 is boundaries and cord cutting. These are terms that's more commonly known in the spiritual community. There are a lot of people that are especially addicted to positivity or staying in the high vibrational state that tends to, in the name of boundaries, cut out everything that is bad or negative or dense or low vibrational. Same thing with cord cutting, which is that we are known to have energetic cord ties with those we share connection with. And if we don't want to deal with someone, or if we don't want to confront someone anymore, or want to avoid something, we call it cord cutting, and we just cut cords left and right. The original definition of boundaries in a healthy manner is meant to serve when you need to regain your own alignment first. In other words, when it's time for you to put on the oxygen mask on yourself. That's when you create boundaries so that you reset or realign yourself to bring back to a state so that you can deal with or address matters that enter your experience. It's very important to remember that nothing can enter your experience without your true permission. No one that enters your experience is just a stranger. They are always, in one way or another, a reflection of you, because it's in your reality. And it always deserves a one cushion to ask yourself, what does this person mean to me? What is it trying to teach me? What is this situation trying to guide me to? That is because that's how we step into a state of detachment. And then we have discernment to decide if this is no longer serving a purpose that is of our highest good or not. When you become a spiritual OCD, you become so caught up in getting rid of dis-ease that any negativity or darkness or density becomes of annoyance, and therefore you're tempted, in the name of boundaries, cut it all off. And what that does is that you puts you in a state of avoidance or escape. It is just simply sweeping things under the rug, and if it's brought to you for your own lesson, it will continue to recur in your life one way or another. And so remember the difference, because when boundaries are created accompanied with something like judgment that I mentioned earlier, what that does is it creates division and cliques and starts to develop the snob community that on the outside appears to be spiritual, but there's no true life in the essence of ascension. Number 5 is virtues. Virtues like compassion, patience, loyalty, respect, responsibility, or sacrifice has no life or meaning or value unless it is infused with an intention of love. Intention breathes life into all action, and it makes the difference. On the outside, it can appear the same way. You can be a great person, to be perceived and appreciated by many as a nice person. But if you're doing it with the intention that you want to just be thought of as a nicer person, like politicians, there's no life. And when you truly step out of your avatar, your physical avatar, the essence of your intent will show. So again, remember, none of these virtues mean anything by doing them. A lot of people ask about, well, I'm working on my compassion, I'm working on my patience. Again, by working on having those things doesn't truly produce the essence of what those virtues represent. It's a byproduct of your state of being. The difference between true compassion and blind compassion is that true compassion sees a need at hand and discerns whether or not you are the one to serve that purpose, to address that need. And then you act on inspired action to help, to add value. Blind compassion is where you overextend yourself to anything that is needed when you're not even equipped to serve that for yourself. Same thing with patience. Patience, in a true virtuous way, manifests itself because you recognize that there is a divine appointment and timing to everything. So when you're about to act on something, you become naturally patient because you want to act when the action is truly inspired. When you're waiting for something to happen, you become naturally patient because you recognize that there's a divine timing for it to happen, and so forth. And I want to add in this virtue that also vice and things that we do is also very much the same, meaning this. If you have a smoking habit, cigarettes or marijuana or drinking alcohol, and people who don't do those things might perceive you as less spiritual than they are. However, again, it isn't the act of those things that makes it dense or low vibrational. It is the intention behind it. If it's an addiction based on need, a codependency, then it becomes less of value. For example, marijuana is a natural herb, and though the law may have created a propaganda that it's bad because of such wide beneficial elements, the marijuana in and of itself is neither good or bad. But if you are attached to smoking marijuana because you need to escape your reality, instead of using it as something that will help to alleviate certain tension, to allow yourself to step into something a little more easier at the time, and that it's more of a targeted activity versus a habitual need, a codependency, which I was also in before, then it is a vice. But the way to address the vice that you have is not to simply quit them, because by simply being sober doesn't necessarily make you more elevated in your state of ascension. Again, it is about focusing on your sense of connection to yourself, and as you elevate in your sense of consciousness, you naturally begin to need less of those things, and they phase out of your life naturally. Now, having said all of these things, we might wonder, well, how do you get into or shift into fifth dimensional consciousness? It's very important to remember that becoming fifth dimensional consciousness, or whatever that means to you, isn't about a goal that you achieve, like heaven or hell. You don't live a certain lifestyle or become certain someone because you simply want to get into heaven, or you're trying not to go to hell, and whatever that means to you. It is about the result of our state, and what our state consists of is all about our intention. And when we intend with love, we simply begin to address everything with great care. We look for quality of connection. We become more present. We become more aware of our state of being. It's not about an achievement of level higher or lower. It's not about being good or better than the other. And some of the most essential part as we ascend into this spiritual evolution that is like of a pyramid, the closer we get to the top of the pyramid, the more introspective we become and less about what is around us. And part of that is what we call shadow work. That we stop resisting a part of ourselves that we don't like, our behaviors, and we begin to confront our shadows. Remember, all things exist with equal polarity. That light cannot be light without shade or contrast. Positive cannot be positive without negative. And sometimes it's very important for us to pay attention to how dark the shade within us is, to understand how bright our light is. And sometimes to embrace negativity, to address it, to confront it, to process it, is the most important thing for us to step into true state of positivity. True state of positivity has nothing to do with treating negativity like a disease. And so the more you are willing to do the inner work, the introspective journey, the more you will naturally transition yourself into what we call the fifth dimensional consciousness. I hope this added value to you. And if you have any comments or questions, I feel like it would be best for you to address it to me directly. Please feel free to write in, contact me. If you're wanting a personal reading or guidance or counsel, please feel free to reach out to me. I am here, info@guidedsoul-ution.com. Thank you for allowing me to share this with you today. Until next time, namaste.